What's up, psychedelic investors? My name's James, and you're watching The Psychedelic Investor, your number one news source for psychedelic stocks. In today's highly anticipated episode, we bring to you our Numinus deep dive. And for those of you who are unaware, Numinus is a psychedelic medicines company using a variety of compounds like psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine to treat for addiction, PTSD, depression, and more. Numinus trades on the TSX Venture Market under the ticker symbol NUMI, or NUMI. So it's currently trading around $1 Canadian, or around a $200 million market cap. So just to be clear with you guys, I don't at the moment own any Numinus stock, but I probably will in the near future, and I might do this through either owning the stock outright or indirectly through an ETF like the Horizon Psychedelic Stock Index or the upcoming Advisor Shares Plant Medicine ETF. So in this episode, we're going to be covering the problems that Numinus is attempting to solve. We're going to cover their flagship programs, their financials, and finally the risks that the company faces. So if you enjoy this episode, invest in the channel with your like and subscribe. Over time, you'll see your investment grow as we continue to bring you the information that you need to know before investing in the psychedelic medicines field. Enjoy the episode. So we're going to start off here with the $2.5 trillion problem that Numinus is attempting to solve. And this is, of course, the same problem that all the other psychedelic medicine companies are trying to solve. And that is that our current methods of treating mental health maladies just don't work. So we're going to take a look at how Numinus describes this problem. So they say that 1 in 11 Canadians suffer from PTSD at some point in their life. They also say that 1 in 5 Canadians currently suffer from addiction. And just as a side note, these are Canadian stats, but they're very similar in the United States. You guys have the same problems down there that we have up here. Moving on, they say that 450,000 people globally died from drug use in 2015 alone. And in 2020, I guarantee you guys it is much higher. So finally, they say that 971 million people globally suffered from a mental or substance use disorder, and they then point out that current methods of treating these conditions just frankly don't work well at all, and sometimes they can even cause addiction or even death. And guys, I've covered this all the time on this channel. I'm not going to go too into depth on it right now, but just know that there really is no cure whatsoever for these difficult diseases like depression or PTSD right now. So finally, the company Numinus, they point out that the cost to the global economy is between $2.5 and $8.5 trillion every single year. And this is due to mental, neurological, and substance use disorders. So on top of this, they say that the total addressable market for treating these maladies is north of $100 billion annually. And that is with medicines right now that don't even work well. So obviously, if Numinus can solve for some of these issues, or at least create a treatment that works better than current methods, the potential for shareholders is going to be huge. And more importantly, the positive societal benefits will make our world a better place. So right now we're going to take a look at some of their flagship programs, and we're going to start with ketamine-assisted therapy. So Numinus recently acquired 2 clinics in Montreal, and these clinics are already performing ketamine-assisted psychotherapy to treat treatment-resistant depression. And these clinics operate under the brand name Mindspace, which Numinus recently bought. So what is important here is that ketamine treatment for TRD, treatment-resistant depression, does not need to go through the clinical trial process here. It is available as a treatment right now. And what they learn here can be informative as they expand to other types of psychedelic assisted therapy. Plus, this gives them a revenue source right now, as opposed to psychedelic therapies which are half a decade or more away from commercialization. So I must say that ketamine as a tool for treating depression is very exciting. For example, at the Ketamine Medical Clinic, no relation to Numinus, they found that between 75 and 80% of people felt better on this treatment as compared to only 35 to 40% of people with more traditional medications for depression. And I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. This is amazing. So seeing this, many other companies have also started to conduct ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, such as Field Trip or Core One Labs, for example. So this is not unique to Numinus. But despite this, Numinus is among the first handful of companies performing the procedure, which is very exciting for Numinus and their shareholders. Next up, we're going to talk about how Numinus is about to launch 2 compassionate access trials for psilocybin and MDMA. Now, before getting into the specifics of what each trial is, let's just first talk about what a compassionate access trial is in the first place. So, compassionate drug use means making a new unapproved drug available to treat seriously ill patients when no other treatments are available. So basically, the people in these trials have tried everything, and nothing has worked for them. Therefore, they have been given permission to, go out and try an experimental procedure, even though it hasn't passed through clinical trials yet. And in performing these procedures, Numinus will gather lots of data, which will be at least as useful and informative as phase 2 clinical trials. So, the first one of these compassionate access trials that they're doing is to treat PTSD with MDMA, and very importantly, this will be done in conjunction with MAPS, who have completed multiple studies on this and are currently undergoing phase 3 clinical trials to study it. So, using MDMA to treat PTSD is actually, in my opinion at least, one of the most promising use cases of psychedelic medicines, so I have very high hopes for this. And if this is shown to be successful in conjunction with MAPS phase 3 trial being successful, we could see Numinus in the years to come make this a core part of their business. No other public companies are working on this yet, though MindMed and some other companies are working with MDMA, so it may just be a matter of time. Nevertheless, Numinus could get a first mover's advantage here. The second compassionate access trial is treating substance use disorder with psilocybin, and this is the first of its kind trial in Canada. This is, oh hey Chester, you're interrupting my video, boy. Go over there, buddy. It's okay. So, as I was saying, the second compassionate access trial is treating substance use disorder with psilocybin, and this is the first of its kind trial in Canada. And this is going to put Numinus in competition with other companies using different compounds to treat addiction. For example, MindMed is using 18MC and Entheon is using DMT to treat addiction. And to be honest with you guys, I don't really know which one will be more successful, but I love how different companies are testing different compounds. Addiction is a crippling societal issue, and we need a solution fast. So I wish Numinus the best of luck. For both compassionate access trials, the trial protocols are finalized and peer-reviewed. Both trials have been fully staffed, and they will take place at their Vancouver clinic. Patient recruitment is set to begin in the spring or summer of 2021, so basically imminently. And look, as I've said 100 times before, that when analyzing psychedelic medicines companies, the most important thing that you guys should be looking at is how far advanced they are in their clinical trials. Well, here, Numinus seems to have found an alternative route. Now, I don't know if this is going to end up being more or less successful, but I do like how they're trying and finding different avenues to push this forward. So, the next thing we're going to talk about is how Numinus hopes to have special access trials for psilocybin and MDMA. So, on top of the compassionate access trials, Numi wants to soon offer psilocybin and MDMA in special access programs. And I believe this just means that the barrier for entry to treat addiction with psilocybin or PTSD with MDMA will be lower than it currently is in the compassionate access setting. So, I'm going to go ahead and read you a couple paragraphs from their website on this topic to try to, give you guys a better understanding of what's happening here. So Numinus says, pending approval of regulatory change, Numinus intends to support practitioners in helping their patients navigate possible special access to psychedelic-assisted therapies for a range of conditions, noting that this program is for patients with potentially life-threatening conditions. Health Canada has posted its notice of intent to revise its special access program to allow legal access to psilocybin and MDMA outside of clinical trials while the substance awaits formal approvals. So, it sounds like this is going to happen, but I don't really know when. Maybe after the first compassionate access trials finish and some data is analyzed, that would kind of make sense to me, but I don't really know. And again, this is very exciting, and if it happens, Numinus will clearly become a frontrunner in the psychedelic medicine space. So, one last important thing to note is that Numinus is actually extracting psilocybin from magic mushrooms itself. So this is in comparison to companies like Compass Pathways, which are synthetically creating the substance, and Numinus claims that this process is going to be significantly cheaper than synthetic versions, which would give it a competitive advantage over their rivals. So, plus some people may just prefer the natural variations as opposed to synthetic ones, I don't know. And also important to note here is that selling this psilocybin to other companies and research centers around the world, is going to be another near-term revenue stream for the company. And on that topic, let's now move over and take a look at their financials. And a brief note, all figures here are going to be in Canadian dollars. So we're going to look at the financial results from their last quarter, which ended on November 20th, 2020, and they call this their Q1 2021 financial results for some reason. And as a side note, I think Numi may be taking some of their own drugs here, calling a quarter that ended in November of 2020 their Q1 2021. And I'm joking, of course. I'm sure they have valid financial and bookkeeping reasons to do this. It's just funny to me is all. So at the end of Q1 2020, Numinus had a revenue of $229,000, which is dwarfed by the about $1.95 million that they spent, giving them a loss of $1.93 million for the quarter. And this is normal for early-stage psychedelic medicine companies. In fact, most of the rivals in this space, like MindMed and Compass, had zero revenue, and they're not going to have any revenue for years to come. So the fact that Numinus actually has a little bit of revenue is very interesting, it's impressive, and it will be great to see in this year going forward if they can bump up those revenue numbers a little bit. But what's far more important than the fact that they have a little bit of revenue right now is the amount of cash on hand that they have, as this will determine for how long they can continue to do research and run trials without making a profit. So after a couple of Q1 capital raises, or I guess Q2 for Numi, man, that's just weird. Numi has $65 million on hand, and while that pales in comparison to the $200 million plus cash position that companies like MindMed have, $65 million is still very respectable. And if we round up and say they're spending $2 million a quarter, Numinus would have enough with this for over 8 years. Now, of course, their expenses are going to rise drastically as they expand, so this is probably just enough for a couple years. Nevertheless, the company is still in a very strong financial position. So now that we've looked at their financials, we're going to take a look briefly at some of the risks that Numinus faces. So first up, the big risk is if the science comes back negative. So yes, there are lots of exciting studies and early indicators that we have a winner on our hands when it comes to mental health issues being treated with psychedelic medicines, but it's not definitive. There is still a very real possibility, although, albeit I would consider it a small possibility, that it turns out that psychedelic medicines just don't work, and this was all just hype. And if that happens, Numinus is going to zero. Point final, game over, boys. Again, I don't think this is going to be the case, but it is in the realm of possibilities, and all investors need to be cognizant of this. The more pertinent risk, I would say, in my opinion, is competition. So Numinus has far less money at the moment than their competition like MindMed or Compass Pathways or Atai, and they're also much less advanced in their clinical trial process. So in other words, they might just lose the horse race. But you know what, guys, even if they do catch up, it's also possible that their medicines will work well, but other companies will just have medicines to work better. For example, maybe 18-MC or DMT will be more effective in treating addiction than psilocybin. I could see this happening. I don't know if it will or not, but it's possible. And it's also possible that perhaps other companies have the same treatments that they do, but they can do it for cheaper. For example, maybe Field Trip can run ketamine clinics more effectively and efficiently than Numinus. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's possible. Now, having said this, I don't think that this is going to be a winner-take-all market. I think that there are going to be lots of companies eating up lots of different segments of the pie, so there should be room for many players here. So, despite all of these risks in general, I think that Numinus has a very bright future. They have many exciting projects, and I'm rooting for them to succeed, like I said at the top of this episode. I don't have a stake in Numinus. I'm not a shareholder at the moment, but I expect to be sometime in the next year. And just a reminder, guys, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm just a retail investor like you who thinks that they've spotted a very real opportunity to make a lot of money here in the process of making the world a better place. And I just wanted to share this with you guys, get your opinions on it, build a community, and hopefully we can all come out of this together on top and we can learn together. So if this resonates with you, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel. It really does help. It will help us continue to grow, and it will ensure that you continue to see the information that you need to know before investing in the psychedelic medicines field. So that's all for this episode. I will see you guys next time, and if you're not ready to say goodbye just yet, click on one of the videos you see on your screen now so we can spend a little bit more time together. This is James from the Psychedelic Investor, signing out. I'll see you next time.